I love talking about TikTok drama. It's helped keep the lights on in my house. And today I want to talk about Nara Smith. So she's a South African born, now living in LA model. Basically her entire gist is doing these mini cooking videos, usually while wearing some kind of fancy attire. Like for example, these videos where it looks like something from the old Hollywood era, or even this, which is apparently called cottagecore. Something I've never heard of. All while doing this in a very soft-spoken voice. Now, at the minute, checking her account, she has 8 million followers, so clearly I'm doing something wrong because my TikTok account is barely past 100k. So she became viral initially by making food from scratch for her husband and for her kids. So for example, if she made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, she wouldn't just buy the bread from a store, she would hand bake all of the bread. She'd also make the peanut butter and she would also make the jelly herself, again, from scratch. And I can really see why someone like this would be so popular and blow up, especially during lockdown when most people were basically relying on Uber Eats. I think the scariest thing you can ever do is ask any kind of influencer online how much they spent on lockdown on Uber Eats, or probably even today. I think every influencer living in America, half of their monthly income either goes on Uber Eats or DoorDash. Now, another reason why she blew up so much is because when you go onto her page and watch her videos, the content is presented as very wholesome, to the point that when you listen to her voice, you think it's an ASMR video.
This morning, my toddler stumbled into my room, and her first words were PB&J, so that's exactly what I got started on. Growing up, I loved having fresh bread. It was one of my favorite things.
I don't think I've seen a genuine ASMR video in the past 5 years, because usually whenever I'm scrolling on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, it's usually people that just have turned the bass on their mic up to max, and then they just start hitting it with a fork or something. She's also been accused by other creators for lying about her age and basically trying to come off younger than she actually is, I guess, in a sense to appear more relatable, which kind of makes sense because I'm 27 now, but in TikTok terms, that's about 300 years old. But it has recently came to light that Nara, with these homemade recipes that she made from scratch, she made all by herself and, discovered the recipes. I guess they came to her in a dream. Pretty much all of it has been faked. Basically, she's been yoinking a lot of the recipes from 2 African TikTokers. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say these names slowly and deliberately, because I swear to God, I'm not having a repeat of Metro's booming track again. So the 2 creators are Onezwas Imbola and Enzila Mayoba. Now you're probably wondering why am I even talking about this? This seems so far removed from any drama you'd see here, basically just cooking TikTok drama. Well, when I saw it and looked into it, it was interesting because obviously, a while ago, we had H-Bomber Guy's massive expose looking into channels, a lot of commentary channels and how they yoink off each other. And I just think it's interesting to see that, plagiarism like this happens all over the creator scene. Now, Onezwas is a rural lifestyle influencer.
My aunt loves to say, which simply translates to, you're not money, not everyone is going to like you.
And basically doing something similar to what Nora did before Nora yoinked it. She shows off her homemade recipes, but also shows off, some of her livestock, usually again with a soft-spoken voice. Now, in no way am I saying that Onezwas is, the first person to invent this kind of content, like cooking from scratch. I'm pretty sure people have been doing that for thousands of years. But I think this is more of the case of a bigger creator seeing what someone smaller is doing, liking that, and then slowly taking more and more pieces until it basically becomes their own content. Now, there have been many examples of things Nora has yoinked from Onezwas, but the biggest one and the most popular one that everyone managed to discover was boba tea. So on the fateful day of June the 12th, Nora suddenly made a video where she said, bizarrely, she was craving a bubble tea.
You ever had a craving that you can't stop thinking about until you actually have it? I've been craving boba for so long that I just decided to make it today.
So she shows, for example, how she got the tapioca pearls completely from scratch, as well as the brown sugar coating for them. But then if we roll back the clocks 2 days to June the 10th, Onezwas also made a boba tea.
Hi, I'm Onezwa, and I make meals using items that I've grown, raised, or foraged.
Now, if that was the only example, I wouldn't be making this video. It's like, oh, they both made boba tea 2 days from each other. Wow, they made a very popular drink, and they also used different ingredients. Where's the yoinking? But again, this isn't the first example where Nora has came out with a recipe a couple days later after Onezwas has. So on February the 9th, Onezwas was making a homemade pizza. And this was made using homemade mozzarella, which she got straight from milking her own cow, because again, she owns livestock. And then literally a day later, Nora posted a video video where she made a homemade lasagna, while also making the homemade mozzarella, again, from scratch. Again, it's not the same dish. If anything, it's more further removed than the boba tea, but it's interesting that Nora used the handmade mozzarella a day after Onezwas did, and the tomato sauce as well. Now, again, I do want to say, to be devil's advocate, do any of these people own the right to, you know, make cheese? Did they copyright it? Like they're going on to Dragon's Den or something to secure a deal for £200,000? No, definitely not. But it's interesting that they've both made something similar in such a small time frame. Also, on top of that as well, Nara actually made her own homemade pizza around a month afterwards. Again, it's not stealing. There's no 100% confirmed proof, but people seem to think it's stealing. And also, it's interesting to, again, see these concepts be made so close to each other. Now, I'm going to give more examples, but I kind of wanted to take a little break to talk about, you know, how I feel that there are definitely two sides to this. I mean, a good example is YouTube, right? YouTube is way more saturated than it was 7 years ago. There's way more people on this platform now doing the same things. I mean, people have already talked about the Mr. Beastification of YouTube, how people are trying to copy Jimmy with videos, and for that reason, Mr. Beast basically has to keep upping his budget, so videos now cost like tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, mostly because he's going against imitators and copycats that, you know, they have a couple million to spare. So what does he do? He's got to level up. He's got to use tens of millions. And another great example is the commentary scene. I'm sure you've heard of the, you know, Dr. Disrespect story. I've had a couple days off. I've been in Sweden chilling. I haven't actually been able to cover it yet. And there's probably not really much point now because every single commentary channel has basically already, you know, beat me to the punch. And the saturation that's showing on YouTube now, I cannot imagine how much worse it is on TikTok. If you have an idea and you use it, it's probably going to be yoinked, replicated, and just taken from you 500 billion times. But then also because of that, because there's more creators that are, you know, trying to do their own thing, there is a higher chance that paths cross and, you know, you accidentally take an idea from someone without really meaning to. Now, other people have looked a stage deeper. They put on their Reddit fedoras and basically became armchair therapists trying to see, you know, how else Nora has yoinked. So now they're saying that Nora hasn't only yoinked Onezwa's content, but her entire personality, her voiceover in her videos. So about a year ago, Nora's content was pretty straightforward. She used basically her normal voice. We're going to call it the normal voice. And it really was just a standard mini vlog of cooking.
I was scrolling through my camera roll and came across this pavlova my sister and brother-in-law made, and I started craving it, so I had to try to make it.
By the way, when I say normal voice, most people, when they record videos like I'm doing now, they try to make themselves sound louder, accentuate, you know, certain accents and stuff. I mean, look at me 7 years ago where I was like putting on a fake deep voice for some reason.
So I've done a face reveal. Not sure why. This'll only end bad for me.
Whoever's editing this, by the way, do not put in a video of me speaking in the fake deep voice 7 years ago. Do not do it. Basically, most people that record videos and talk probably don't talk the same way when you're just having a normal conversation with them. This isn't like a thing where it's like, you know, Filthy Frank in his room 7 years ago and he sounds like that normally.
Mom's sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, there's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti!
I went to the deli and I got a strawberry Fanta, and they're very syrupy.
But then if you look at Nora's more recent content, she's now much more soft-spoken. And some are accusing her of saying that that change didn't come naturally, but it's more that she saw Onezwa's content and went, ooh, well, that's quite wholesome. I might steal that. Because again, if you look at Onezwa's content, she's always had a pretty soft-spoken voice and frames her videos to include her family and life on a farm. And Nora, again, she has no animals, but she started to include her family more and more in her content. But again, it's one of those situations where you think, is she actually yoinking, or did her voice just naturally change to what the current meta is? Now, Onezwas isn't the only person that Nora may have stolen ideas from. There was the other creator that I mentioned earlier. Again, I'm going to say the name very slow. We're not having a Metro's Booming moment. Enzilla Miyoba. But I'm just going to call her Enzilla for, you know, just the sake of like me being terrified of butchering any more words on this channel and it becoming another meme overnight. Now, Enzilla is another African lifestyle YouTuber, but she lives in Europe. And again, she's also someone that makes all of her food from scratch. But on top of that as well, she makes other things from scratch, like makeup, lotions, apparently toothpaste as well. I'm not really sure how you do that, but fair enough. We'll probably need you when the world ends. It kind of reminds me of this meme of like this guy sat around like a bunch of cavemen, I think, and they ask him like, how does electricity work? And he just says he doesn't know. But my point being, all this kind of like body care stuff, this is also something Nora has started to add into her own content as well. For example, on the 15th of May, Nora made a video about how her husband ran out of moisturizer and decided to make some from scratch for him.
This morning, my husband ran out of the moisturizer that he usually uses, and he didn't love it enough to repurchase, so he just decided to make his own.
But then, 2 days prior, Enzilla made her own body butter from scratch.
For a long time, people have been looking for ways to take care of their skin. Making my own body lotion has been a big help for my dark skin. Dealing with dry skin is a common experience. Cold winters can be tough, especially for darker skin tones.
And this obviously led to a lot of people calling her out for plagiarism and stuff, but again, it's so difficult to understand whether it is direct plagiarism or not, because either it's a horrible, coincidence that has happened multiple times, or Nara could be like spying on these accounts, lurking on these accounts, and then realizing, okay, so if I copy that, I'm going to get called out. So let me do something in the same vein, but different enough to have deniability. Now, this is not the first time that people have accused Nara of stealing from Enzila. On the 23rd of May, Nara posted a video where she made her own ketchup as well as ranch and hot sauce. This is basically, just kind of a wholesome restocking her household.
When making dinner tonight, I realized we were all out of our condiments, so I decided to do a little restock. Today we're making some ketchup, ranch, barbecue sauce, and hot sauce. So I started with my ketchup, combining tomato paste, some honey, vinegar, and water, simmering that on the stove before pulling that off and letting it cool.
And then people were quick to point out that the way Nara made her ketchup was the exact same way that Nazila made hers. Because back in like the 9th of March, she basically made a video of like making her own burgers from scratch, which included making the ketchup from scratch.
Overcoming struggles taught me to be patient, strong, and not give up. Life has obstacles, and I'm thankful for facing them because it prepared me for today's challenges.
Now, even though the timelines here don't match up, it's nothing similar to what I've talked about previously, it's still interesting that they use the exact same ingredients to get the same product. But again, like looking more into this and seeing all these examples, I feel like there's nothing concrete. There isn't like any kind of like dead to rights example. Again, it really could just be a horrible case of, just coincidences, or Nara is basically on a burner account, lurking these accounts to see what recipes they do and then changing it just enough to have deniability. And also, to be devil's advocate again, this could also be a scenario where Nara is basically the biggest creator in her scene, which, I mean, she has to be, right? She's got 8 million followers on TikTok. So she's now unfortunately reached this point where she's on top of the ladder, top of the totem pole, whatever buzzword you want to use, and basically anything she makes will then be compared to a smaller creator to say that she yoinked. Again, I'm not saying that as fact, that could just be another game theory. There's also another example floating around as well when Nazila made her own butter, and then 2 weeks later, Nara also made her own butter. I do feel if you're like kind of a food TikToker, eventually you are going to run out of ideas and probably start, lurking around to see what influences you can get. But again, like if credit was given, that wouldn't be a problem. Once again, and not only that, there was another example where Enzila made lollipops, and then a week later, again, Nara did the exact same thing.
As I make these lollipops, I'm reminded of how sweet and small and intricate each and every piece is.
My husband's about to go on a 25-hour road trip, so I decided to make him some bubblegum lollipops as a little treat on his drive.
But there were some small changes, like for example, Nara added bubblegum into hers. I mean, again, I'm really trying to see both sides here, but it is kind of giving the vibes that, hey, can I borrow your homework and I'll just change a little bit of it? All right, cheers, bro. Because it's almost like when Nara isn't directly replicating the recipes, she's almost trying to like improve them, put her own spin on them, so it's not direct plagiarism. Now, shortly after the boba tea scandal, I'm pretty sure I'm going to call this video huge boba tea drama or something like that. I swear, right now on YouTube, you put drama in anything or situation, it is like the easiest way to juice views. But yeah, after that, Oniswaz basically said that she was taking a break from social media. She then followed up with another video, basically, flat out accusing Nara of yoinking her content. And it really annoyed her because she lives in South Africa and basically says that she gets nowhere near the amount of income that Nara does. Usually because TikTok will pay depending on your currency and what part of the world you live in.
The reason for me taking a break on that platform is that for months now, I have watched a very, very popular content creator use my ideas. And again, I'm not the first person to do anything. They have continuously used my ideas to get views.
I actually thought for the longest time TikTok paid literal pennies, but there are people like Joshua Block, World of T-Shirts, the guy that like, I'm gonna show you, and he's just like getting drunk, like blackout drunk every single day. Apparently that guy makes around like $25,000 a month just from like spam posting videos onto his page, because even though he doesn't really get that many views, he does post around like 9 to 10 videos a day. She also mentions as well, because of her location, it's harder for her to get brand deals. I mean, I'm not really sure if you'd need like NordVPN in South Africa. Basically, the entire video is her showing her frustration that she feels someone is yoinking her content and seeing the fruits of basically zero labor. So, how did Nara respond to this? Did she sit down? Did she pull out her phone, start doing a TikTok live with tears, thanking people for the galaxies and whatever, like, garbage donations you get on that site? She actually went radio silent, but not entirely. Instead of responding to the, the allegations, she sent Onezwas an email threatening to sue her for defamation of character if she doesn't stop making these statements and retract the previous ones. It's funny how in the creator world, cease and desist letters are basically just checking how much money you have in your bank account, because I feel that people that have a huge amount of income would not be scared of them. They just lawyer up. But obviously someone like Onezwas, who's in South Africa, has nowhere near the income that Nora has. That would be pretty terrifying to get through. I mean, again, this is a girl who lives in LA who's basically threatening someone in a small African village. Now, there hasn't been much of an update on that story since. Onezwas has done like one single video since then, and it hasn't been addressing Nara at all. It's basically just doing another cooking video. But again, the point I need to get across, do any of these women own the rights to basically single-handedly cook food, make cosmetics, make lotions, make body butter? No. They definitely don't. But again, if you made it so far into the video, listing like half a dozen, probably more so, examples of Nora making things pretty soon after other creators, it starts to add up. There is not one single example I've gave that has a dead to rights, but I feel like there's been so many examples that it's really hard to ignore. She's been able to craft a very kind of natural, kind of clean girl, wholesome Chungus 100 aesthetic on her TikTok page, and that's the reason why she has the best part of 10 million followers. Now, one thing that'll be really interesting now to see what happens next is Onezwas has, for the most part, stopped posting on social media. So what will happen with Nora's content now? Could you imagine if Nora also took a random hiatus, like, oh guys, I gotta take a break from the internet. It's all been a little bit too much for me. It'd be really interesting to see if there were other cooking, handmade from scratch cooking creators that suddenly come out soon and basically say the same thing about Nara. So what's the moral of this video? Get Uber Eats.